Yo, this hot, this the spot, there it is, pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and life to stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a comedy podcast that's been going on for 5 years. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. Yay, it's our 5-year anniversary. Yes, that's what we are celebrating in this episode today with girlfriend of the show, Justina. And also today, I'm just going to let the music play out. I don't always let it go to the end, but I'm going to play it there just in the background, just that background music, because a lot of work was put into it. The rap was done by Nick Acevedo, who went by Vado on Fiverr, which is where I found him 5 years ago. See the connection? 5 is in both of those words. And the music entirely was done by previous guest Neil Brooks, who's an old friend from Greenville, South Carolina. He's an excellent musician, and he had put that together and offered it to me when I was starting this podcast, and he said, hey, why don't you use it? I offered it to another podcast, and they said it was too funky, and I was like, there's no such thing, so I'm going to use that music, and that's how we have this wonderful theme song that we have. So big thanks to Neil Brooks for that, and to Nick Acevedo for doing the rap. And I like to think that you rap along with it when you hear it. So today's episode, we are celebrating. We talk about some fun things. So why don't we just get right to it? Here I am celebrating 5 years of the podcast with girlfriend of the show, Justina. Well, welcome to the 5th anniversary episode. Of the show, Justina.
Sorry if that was too loud. I'm just very excited.
I'm glad you're excited. I hope people listening are excited. I can't believe it. You know, I'll tell you, this anniversary snuck up on me.
Yes, it did.
You know how, like a couple months after your birthday, you're still saying your previous age?
No, I don't. I literally don't.
Or like when you're writing a check and you're still writing the last year.
Maybe that. Maybe.
I was kind of joking because nobody writes checks.
We do every single month.
That's true. Nobody, as in most people, are like Venmo. But anyway, my point is, that happens sometimes. You're like, you know, you turn 32 and you're like, oh, I'm 31. No, I mean 32. Well, that's how this last year was for me when it comes to the podcast. Because I've been thinking, like, my mindset has been 4.5 years. The last few months, like the last several months, I've just consciously thought, I've been doing the podcast for 4.5 years. And this last year's just thrown me off on time. I mean, it feels simultaneously like several years have gone by while also time stood still.
I agree with that for sure. And that's like a whole other conversation, but
yeah.
Fuck time in this last year. Because I don't know what's going on.
It's a bizarre thing. And, you know, everyone is maybe tired of talking about time and COVID and everything because we want to move on. But it's still like kind of out there. And I don't know. Anyway. But it's not 4.5 years of the podcast. It's 5.
Woo!
Technically last Monday, but we're doing the celebration this week, and I'm very happy about it. So I thought we'd take a trip down memory lane. Usually when we do these, we're only talking about the last year for the anniversary episodes, but I want to talk about the podcast as a whole.
5 is a pretty big number. I think you don't need to just reflect on the last year. I think that's like a big anniversary.
It is. And so if anyone wants to send the podcast a birthday gift, please do. The podcast. Yeah.
Sorry.
The podcast loves bourbon.
The podcast loves bourbon. I
And
tell you what.
dough donuts and guitars and guitar accessories. So, if you want to get the podcast a gift.
Nah.
But I do want to just share some fun facts, some details, some things about the podcast to sort of talk about what's gone on these last 5 years. Because we've done a ton of episodes, 220, 220 episodes. And, when we hit 200, I was like, wow, but 220, that's a big one too to hit.
I have some trivia for you.
Yeah, and so, I want to hear some trivia, and I'm going to talk about episodes like top 10 most listened to episodes. We'll talk about some other stats like that. But let's go on the trivia that you were going to...
Okay, great.
What's this trivia?
Who is your most frequently occurring guest?
When we say...
Just the name of the person. And by which I mean they have been an interviewee the most times.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because it's like you otherwise.
No.
You've been on the podcast the most other than me. Mm-hmm. And then it's Rob and Trey, I guess?
Okay, none of them. No best friends, boyfriends, girlfriends of the show.
Then it is Brian James O'Connell. He's been on 3 episodes as a guest.
Excellent. I was going to say how many times, and yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm. Speaking of me, though, how many times have I been on the podcast? It's if you answer it wrong, then you don't love me.
Oh, baby. I off the top of my head, I don't. Do you know the number?
No, but you should, and if you don't,
okay.
then you don't love me.
Well, you don't love yourself if you don't know.
I don't love myself. I have cripplingly low self-esteem.
Are you a Gen Z and not a millennial? Because, come on. There was somebody on Twitter the other day that was saying that like millennials were maybe the last to do any sort of "I hate my wife" sort of jokes.
I hate my wife?
It was like old stand-up jokes. This person
Millennials were the last ones to do those.
Well,
okay.
They said millennials killed that sense of humor.
Okay.
They're wrong, but because no one under 50 does those kind of like
right.
Rodney Dangerfield. Oh, my wife, I get no respect.
I tell you, there's wise guys. Well, I checked in a hotel. I asked the bellhop to handle my bag. He started to feel up my wife. I said to him, hey, buddy, who told you could play around with my wife? He said, everybody. She's a lousy cook, too. She can't cook at all. I leave dental floss in the kitchen, the roaches hang themselves. That's the story of my life. No respect. I don't get no respect at all. Are you kidding?
But I made the joke that Dangerfield's great. But my thing was, I think what people have done, like under 40, is they don't do I hate my wife. They do my wife hates me. But there are some people that are saying, I don't. Gen Z doesn't do, or millennials don't do I hate my wife. They do I hate my life. So.
Can I say something really fast about that? Mm-hmm. Basically, you're getting off topic, and you don't know how many times I've been on the episode, and you don't love me. The podcast.
I don't know. I didn't.
That's fine. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of love, so it's fine. It's good that you don't know how many times.
Jason, you have failed this city.
Next trivia question. What number episode did you interview Julia Schroeder?
What episode number?
Uh-huh.
It's like a 180 something, wasn't it?
Pretty good. 182. Pretty good. Next question, and this will be timed. You have 1 second to answer this question. What was the name of your first ever guest?
Tess Rafferty.
Wow. You got it. And final trivia question about the There It Is podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it?
It's a good question because I used to say Greenville, but now I say Brooklyn. But I think it's in our hearts.
Oh, man. Okay.
And everyone just shut the podcast off right now. Do you have any other trivia questions?
No, that was it. That was the final trivia question.
Well, I have some trivia questions in the way of stats.
Okay.
So here are the top 10 episodes going from 10 to 1.
Okay.
Do you want to make a gander at who number 10 is?
No.
Mm-hmm.
You've had some great guests. It could be any.
That's true.
Just like you've had more famous guests that aren't the famousest of your episodes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's kind of
like
random. It's very random. Well, here's the top 10. Number 10 is the very first episode, Tess Rafferty.
Nice.
Number 9 is the 14th episode with Toby Morrell.
Oh, yep.
Old friend and lead singer of Emery and one of the co-hosts of the Bad Christian podcast. Number 8 is episode 144, Dialect Coach Jordan Yanko.
Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
He's a great dude and very supportive. And then we have episode 7, or number 7, I should say, is episode 113, the Christmas episode. So it's one of the times we did a Christmas episode.
Who all was on that episode?
I would have to look. I don't remember.
That's okay.
offhand.
That's okay.
I mean, that's definitely not the first one. Because the first Christmas episode would have been like 40-something, 50.
113.
So it would have to be
Jason, Justina. Just Jason and Justina.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who's Justina? Who the fuck is Justina? Honestly, this is upsetting.
Coming in at number 6, episode 90, which was James Breakwell, also known as Exploding Unicorn on the internet.
Okay, cool.
He has a big following. That makes a lot of sense. Number 5, so we're at top 5 now. Coming in at number 5 is the horror comedy bracket episode.
That was fun. That was one of my
fun.
favorite brackets that you've done.
Yeah. And it's, like one of the most popular episodes. And in the last year, it just even saw more
That's funny.
listens. So that's pretty cool. Coming in at number 4 is episode 159, Dave Pasquazi. Of course.
Man,
big name. And coming in at number 3, so now we're in top 3, Simon C. Holland, also another big internet person.
Yep.
Super funny guy. Previous number 2, but in the last 6 months has been overtaken. Mm-hmm. But number 2, previous number 1 for with a bullet for years, Abby Russell.
Okay,
Episode
cool.
64, also huge online following.
Right, cool.
And now the new number 1 episode of the podcast is mini episode number 1 that I did in December. This past December.
Well, that is like a big old hello to you. Like, do some mini episodes. That's what the people want.
Well, here's the sad thing. Mini episode number 2 and mini episode 3 do not have the same kind of... I mean, they're fine, but they're not like...
That's funny,
nearly
though.
as high as...
You know who was not... I mean, actually, there's a few people that I'm like, how come they're not up in the top 10?
They're a number
but
like that.
Because it's like top of mind, because it's relevant over the past year. Kyle Gordon, Mr. TikTok creator, genius, funny, took off like a shooting star. Kyle Gordon.
That's what I'm saying.
I thought he would be up there.
That's what I'm saying.
Also, angel human being. He's just a very nice person.
He is. And I'm surprised, too, that his isn't like super high up there in the top 10. But maybe time will tell. Maybe people who pay attention to him on TikTok just haven't come around to checking out podcasts and seeing if he was on one yet. And I don't know how to really promote a podcast on TikTok in a way that, well, I don't know. You can do it. But
Stop talking like a millennial. An older millennial.
as you yawn.
I'm just like bored of your ineptitude at TikTok.
So yeah, those are the top 10 episodes for listenership. But yeah, Will Hines isn't in there.
Oh, dang.
And Sharna Halpern.
Right.
So there are a lot of big names.
Tina
who are
Fey,
not.
when you
Tina Fey.
interviewed her.
Yeah, that's behind the paywall now.
Right.
First time listening.
Bryan Cranston, that was a huge get for you.
Eddie Murphy.
Jerry Seinfeld was like, hello.
Right.
But he's definitely not in the top 10.
All of these are behind the paywall.
Right.
And people can get that if they send the podcast a Silver Sky guitar and bourbon for its birthday.
My goodness.
It's old enough. 5 years, and podcast years is definitely 21. But let's talk about favorite episodes. Now, it's kind of like fave in quotation marks because there aren't episodes that I dislike, and there are a lot of friends who've been on the podcast, so I'm not stacking them up against each other because that seems like it would be unfair. So episodes have like super close personal friends I'm not going to necessarily highlight. I had like almost 30 things that I jotted down when I was trying to put together this list of my favorite episodes. But I'm going to sort of leave out maybe some of the obvious ones and also leave out the friends. So I'm not going to mention like Dave Pasquazi and Will Hines because, I mean, obviously that's going to be a favorite episode. But there's a little bit of a caveat. A couple of these people I did still have to mention, even though they're big names. But here, in no particular order, are favorite episodes of mine. And we'll see if any of these are yours.
Okay.
Okay, so again, no particular order. Episode 169, Casey St. Onge, who is so great. She's done so much stuff working at she worked at Rosie. She worked at Andy Cohen's show, and she was working with Busy Phillips and is still working with Busy Phillips on that podcast.
Yeah.
And that's a great episode. So many great stories. We talk a lot about Prince, too. There's also an incredible amount of insight. And that's one of the episodes that I feel like if you haven't heard it, you absolutely need to go and listen to it because she was so great. Another one that I love is Joe Firestone. That was episode 111. And she was awesome. I really like her as a person, and she's also really funny. And I really like her as a comic. I loved learning how to write a thank you note. Like, because she wrote it, The Tonight Show, and she said, like, well, here's how we did that. And when I started this podcast, it was to talk to people like her and do something like that. So the fact that we created something together and it was really a highlight.
Totally.
For me. Lindsay Catt, episode 91. Now she is kind of a friend of ours, but we met. We really first talked on the podcast. So. She's not like an old friend. It's not like saying Harrison Brookie. Like, he's an old friend. It's kind of unfair to say it's a favorite episode, even though it's a great episode. But anyway, Lindsay Catt, she's so kind. She's so encouraging. And one of the reasons that this is a favorite episode is because she encouraged me and sort of taught me how to believe in my own dreams, you know, to not like, not second guess myself, but to sort of undercut.
Yep.
What I can wish for, or hope for, or believe can even happen to me. So that really meant a lot. She's such an encouraging and thoughtful person. Speaking of thoughtful, the next episode I'm going to mention is Julian Villard's. That was episode 149. He's the musician that we saw. Yeah. At Ask Me Another.
Yeah, an NPR show.
All right, so when we asked our guest musician, Julian Villard, what sort of music parody would you like to do? He requested yacht rock. What exactly is yacht rock?
It describes music from the late 1970s and early 80s that has a sophisticated pop rock sound and also some nautical references. In this game, we rewrote yacht rock classics to make them about real and fictional sea vessels. Ring in and tell me what I'm singing about. If you get that right, for a bonus point, you can name the original yacht rock song or artist who made it famous. Here we go. I keep obsessing about that big white sperm whale. I keep processing that big bite he took out of my leg. We keep progressing about this whale ship. I keep obsessing.
Yeah.
And he was awesome, but I really liked what he was saying about, I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he was talking about how an artist presents himself through their work and the sort of exchange that is an expectation there is to that with the audience. And there's obviously a lot to think about with that, but he was specifically sort of talking about how somebody like Aziz Ansari literally wrote a book about romance, and then he has this date where he's not being very romantic, you know. And I think you also mentioned Ryan Adams as somebody who is known as this sensitive songwriter who just gets it and is gonna like be a loving person, and then it comes out that he's not been to some women that he's dated. So that was a point he was making that I never really thought of, but it's a very good point because you are essentially cashing in with the audience a certain persona.
Yes.
And when you're not being that in your personal life or your professional work relationships,
it kind of ruins it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you can't put yourself out there as understanding something and then not do it in your private life. And of course, we have plenty of examples of that when it comes to like mean-spirited pastors or something like that. But
also, like, I think that's like a lesson. And sorry to get away from like your favorite episodes, but like that's an episode for us as audiences and consumers to not put too much personality on a artist.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, that's what I was saying, like there's so much to like unpack with that particular topic, because some of what we see now is like people standing somebody and they're putting somebody on a pedestal and saying they're perfect. You know, like there are people who will criticize somebody because they said something that wasn't right. They were wrong about something. They made a mistake about something. They didn't even do or say something that was criminal or really awful. They just said something that was wrong and inappropriate. And now, like, that person's done with a certain faction of people online. They're done. You're not supposed to pay any attention to this person anymore because they did this thing. But like this person instead. And the context is this person hasn't made any mistakes like that. You're in for a rude awakening because that person absolutely has made mistakes like that. And at some point it's going to come out, and I don't know. I don't like the whole gotta be perfect. Everyone's trying to act perfect and upholding that, especially tying it in with celebrityism. Like it's gross. But anyway, let's go back to talking about these episodes. Another one that I loved was Joe Toplin. That was a big deal to get him and get to hear stories about just late night talk shows, which I love so much. Another episode I loved was Will Miles. That was episode 53. Joe Toplin's was episode 13, by the way. Will Miles, great comic. And I love that one so much because it got unexpectedly serious. And I think that was one of the first times where I realized, oh, if the podcast goes there, if something, talking about race relations or something like that, if we start getting into that, like, that's fine. And that's happened a few times since, and because of that episode with Will Miles, I've been more and more open to it happening. That was when we were in our first apartment. I still remember sitting there
in the studio or the basement.
The when we were subleasing, first 6 months living in New York. Next episode I'll mention, Josh Gondelman, which is episode 7.
He's so nice.
He's so nice, and I know he is a big deal. But he's like...
He's just like the nicest person.
Nicest person. He was super nice in the episode. He was nice when I got to open for him in SC. And when I've bumped into him here, he's super nice. And one of the things that was, I think, applicable, which is still about how nice he is, I said something about, yeah, I'm just not good at this kind of like political satire and da-da-da. And he was like, yeah, maybe you don't have to be good at that. It totally let me off the hook because...
Gen Z.
But there are all these people who are huge that I love in comedy, and they are good at political humor. And I didn't necessarily feel like it was a strong suit of mine, but he was saying, like, there are other things you can do around that.
Man, totally. Thank you, Josh Gondelman. And that's like a bigger conversation about education in America and how we put so much value on being good at everything, but people learn differently. And some people are good at math and really bad at spelling, and that's okay. They'll function just fine in the United States of America.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I definitely am one that's like, oh, I got to be good at all these things. But like, if you're not good at that, you can hire somebody who is, or you can work with someone who is.
Or just not ever have to use that. Just take a path where you don't have to use that.
Yeah. You know, like the old saying, write what you know. So if you don't know about it, then don't write about it. Don't feel like you have to and then suck at it if you're worried about that. Like, do what you're good at and do what you know. Great advice. Another episode, Mark Kendall, talking about nice people. I mean, that was episode 30, and he's just one of the nicest, funniest people in the world. So funny. Deserves so much attention to his work.
He's doing pretty well on TikTok right now.
Hi, my name is Mark, and these are some things that I love. I love you, Tree. Thank you for your stories. I love you, Krispy Kreme. You'll be back soon. What about yourself? Do you love yourself, Mark? Michael Jordan.
And Cardi B, we just called to say we love you.
I love y'all too. I love you, garbage can. QAnon is a cancer to our democracy. What about you, Mark? Do you love yourself, Mark?
He is. I really want him to get like big because I think he deserves it.
Yeah. TikTok is not the avenue, not the voice, the channel for everybody. And
Yeah,
that's fine.
that's true.
Some people are funnier in their own YouTube videos or whatever, you know?
That's true. And that is true. I think, and that's something that's kind of interesting about online content, comedy through it, is that there is a little different voice with TikTok than YouTube or even Instagram, maybe. There's maybe some slight similarities. Twitter's obviously very different. And then, so 3 more episodes I'll mention. Cambry Cruise, episode 181, very inspirational episode about, like, who cares what age you are. You can do whatever at whatever time you want to start doing it. She was saying, like, I think the thing I pointed out was that she said, like, I'm such and such years old, and I just got braces and started taking paint lessons, maybe, and roller skating or something. It's like,
is she the one who mentioned Artist's Way?
Ooh, I feel like there were a couple people
I feel like
who
you had a
did.
couple of, just because Julia Cameron has a quote about like how somebody was like, well, if I start playing the piano now, I'll be 55 by the time I'm any good. And she's like, you're going to be 55 anyway. Just learn to play the piano.
What a wonderful thought.
Yeah.
I love
definitely
that.
paraphrase that, but yeah.
But that's so great. That's so true. Like, you can either start doing it now and just be good when you're good at it, or like who cares anymore?
Yeah.
I remember our friend Walter from Alchemy Comedy saying something, I think after a class, and he started to get down on himself, and he was saying something like, I started doing improv too late in life. And I was like, no. Like, there's, no, not at all. Because you are providing a perspective right now.
Totally.
That other people aren't. And inspiring people. Because,
Yep.
like, he's so inspiring to me. I love Walter. I miss Walter. And two more. Martin Morrow, episode 62. Very funny guy. But I loved him talking about self-care. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Like, people don't so openly talk about that. And especially at that time
At
when I
that
interviewed
time, maybe.
him.
Nowadays, it's
now
like,
they do.
you got to talk about self-care.
That's true. Now it's like almost just a
Too
meme.
much. Yeah.
It's like, you don't even have to actually be doing anything. Just talk
Self-care
about
is
it.
a little bit convoluted nowadays. It's like, go to the spa and take a day at Nordstrom's.
right.
That's not self-care. You know what self-care is? Like looking at all your credit cards and seeing how quickly you can pay them off.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe not drinking as much.
Self-care, I need a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
With self-care. It's just a me moment. I mean, definitely some me time. I think what some people have misconstrued with it is me time is self-care,
Yeah.
which is true.
Yeah.
But they go like, no, that's what self-care, that's all self-care is.
Yep. No,
I
no,
need
no,
some
no,
me
no, no.
time. And
Yeah.
it's like, you've had all week. And another episode, the final, not necessarily my number one, but I've mentioned this a bunch. Keisha Zoller, episode 85. But though she probably is a top 3 favorite episode of mine, but I say it all the time, respect my humanity. I'd never heard anyone talk like that or say that specifically. And I was just like, yeah, like just, you don't have to agree with me. You don't even have to like me, but you have to respect that I am a person.
Yeah.
If you want to have any humanity.
Get off the internet.
Yes. Now, speaking of the internet, this podcast, as we all know, people access through the internet, and they access it from all over the world.
Uh-oh.
So let's first talk about like some of the top cities that we're in that people listen to. So obviously Greenville,
Yep.
because we're from New York.
Yeah,
so that's
makes
where we
sense.
are. Columbus, number
Ohio?
4, I guess.
Cool.
That was number 3. Number 4, Brooklyn. So
All
they're
right.
separating New York and Brooklyn.
Please.
Number 5, Los Angeles. Number 6, Mountain View.
Where's Mountain View?
I don't know, but isn't that great?
Yep.
And then there's
Shout out to Mountain View.
and then Taylor's, Greer, Atlanta, Ashburn. I don't know where that is. Pittsburgh. Hey, thank you for listening, Ashburn. Tell us where you are. We'll come visit. Do you have good barbecue? Pittsburgh, as I mentioned. San Francisco's on here. Well, it's for the biggest foreign city, Barcelona.
What?
It's the biggest foreign city for
go.
listenership. And then something I can't pronounce is number 2, but it's kind of way down. Oh, Amsterdam. Amsterdam is on there. Now let's look at countries. Obviously, United States going to be number 1. Want to take a guess at what number 2 is?
Australia.
No, but
New Zealand.
no. But I was going to say Australia's number 4.
Okay.
United Kingdom's number 2.
Oh, yeah.
Canada's number 3. Then Australia, then Germany, then Spain, then the Netherlands, then the Russian Federation, then Iceland,
Bah.
Ireland, Japan, France. I'm loving it. So thank you from all over the world, people listening. That's very exciting and very cool and fun. And, when you put something out, obviously, that's a possibility. But I just wasn't consciously thinking, yeah, people from Ashburn are going to be listening to the podcast, or people from Amsterdam or wherever.
You need to think big.
I do. Thank you. And also thank you, Lindsay Cat. But I just mean, I wasn't being down on myself. I just wasn't consciously thinking about it,
But just let it happen. It happens, and just let it be awesome.
And it is awesome.
You're not letting it be awesome.
No, I'm just
let it be
saying.
awesome.
This is what I'm trying to say. It was beyond my wildest dreams.
Oh my God.
Well, usually when we do anniversary episodes, we talk about what we'd like to do for the future of the podcast or what we'd like to see happen. And I still would like to see some growth happen. But I gotta say, I feel like the last month or so of asking guests to come on, and we've had some awesome guests this year, especially. I feel like people are sleeping just on the month of March. There are some great guests every week, just in that month. But there were great guests all over this year. Tavish Forsyth, got to listen to that episode if you haven't. Especially, just go to the YouTube, our youtube.com/there it is. Check out the Tavish Forsyth episode because there's a lot of cool extra content in the YouTube version of that episode. But anyway, it's been hard to get guests or get answers from guests because everyone has started a podcast. Everyone, especially comedians.
Yep.
So it's a little like you're putting out, like, hey, you want to come on my podcast? And like, I have a podcast.
Right.
They don't even have to say anything because then I look at their bio and I'm like, oh, they just started a podcast. So why would they need to go on someone else's? But some people, like Monica Nevi, who was just on, they go on other people's podcasts because I guess it's like cross-promotional or they just, it's fun. So, it's the podcast birthday. Come on the podcast.
Please.
As a gift. Bring a PRS Silver Sky and a bottle of whiskey. And we'll do it up.
Oh my gosh.
For the podcast. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's see. So those are sort of like general things that I always say when we do an anniversary episode.
Yep.
You said it. Dream big. I need to dream big.
No. Don't dream big. Think big.
Okay.
Open
big.
your mind. It's not a dream. It's reality. It's not weird to be in Canada and England.
No, I'm
obviously.
not saying it's weird.
I don't think you mean it's weird. I think you think it's like, oh, I don't deserve it. It's not worthy.
No, that's not what I mean. What I just meant was like, oh, I didn't even think about that.
Because you got to think bigger.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm gonna think bigger instead of just saying like the podcast to grow. I want to have 100,000 followers on social media.
Easy.
On each of the accounts.
Yeah.
On every social media.
That has
There
been.
it is. Pod.
I think it behoves us to say that you started the YouTube channel in the 5th year, so that's important.
Yes.
For people to know, like an update that happened over this past year, and that's been really good.
Yeah.
Also, people listen to podcasts on YouTube. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget. Shout out to brother of the show, Trey, for helping with that.
You're welcome.
And new episodes have extra content. He whipped the old episodes up for us real quick, which was really great. And then he thought, hey, for these new episodes, they're like references to
So he puts
things.
video clips and
So,
stuff and references, photos, it's good.
So that, but think big. Okay, I want Eddie Murphy on the podcast in the next year.
Cool. You should call him.
I mean, no, I'm not even going to say that. What the negative thought I was about to say. That's what Eddie Murphy, Steve Martin,
Conan. Coco.
Right.
Coco. Tina Fey again.
Yeah, we should have her back.
We should have her back. We should have Eddie Murphy back.
Yeah, let's have him back.
Have Dave Chappelle back.
Let's invite him back.
Well, thanks for listening, and girlfriend of the show, thanks for supporting me through this.
You're welcome. It's been really hard. I've definitely set aside some of my dreams, but what can I say? That's what a wife. Oh wait, I mean a girlfriend does.
A girlfriend of the show.
That's right.
And thank you for listening, all of you, and please share us with people
On YouTube.
on YouTube.
On iTunes. On SoundCloud. On other
We're on a
channels.
bunch. We're on a bunch of them. So search us. ThereItIsPod.com. You could check it out.
If you care, search.
If you care, search. Okay. Enough of this. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. Justina, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me in your life and on the pod.
Well, we're a bunch of a couple of jackasses. That's what we are. We're two people, but we make up a bunch of jackasses. That's the real truth. And thank you so much for listening. 5 years! Can't believe it. Please share your favorite moments or episodes with us. You can do that on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at ThereItIsPod. Please follow us if you don't already. Also, like and subscribe to our YouTube page, youtube.com/thereitis. And also subscribe to our comedy lifestyle newsletter and support us if you can. We have a Patreon and a PayPal. And if you want to send us a silver sky, maybe you are John Mayer and you're like, you know what, I'll send the podcast a silver sky. Just do that. Just do that. Message us. Go to ThereItIsPod.com for newsletter and support info. Until next time, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.